Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the rousing applause. I'm pleased to rise in the House today to speak to Bill C-33, an act to amend the Railway Safety Act. Mr. Speaker, Canada's railways are an intrinsic part of our country's history and nation-building experience. They continue to serve as a symbolic reminder of the great geographic distances brought together by Confederation. In addition to the purely symbolic aspects of Canada's rail network, railways continue to provide a vital connection between the various regions of Canada, both in terms of passenger trips and cargo and freight shipments. Although the advent of modern transportation, such as air travel, have certainly led to a reduction in the number of annual passenger train trips, this does not mean that the industry in Canada has become obsolete. In fact, Mr. Speaker, rural and northern communities remain highly dependent on the availability of rail services. That is why, since my election as a member of the Great Riding of Sudbury, I have been a vocal advocate for the expansion of rail lines and the upgrading of rail infrastructure in communities in northern Ontario. Specifically, I have been an ardent supporter of keeping the Huron Central Railway's operations alive and running, along with the help of other Northern Ontario New Democrat members, including the members for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, Nickel Belt, and Sault Ste. Marie. The NDP has successfully lobbied both this government and provincial governments to infuse $33 million into infrastructure funds devoted to maintaining and improving rail connections in Northern Ontario. In addition to maintaining and upgrading northern and rural access to rail services, ensuring that rail travel is safe is paramount. Whether it's passengers on board trains themselves or pedestrians and motorists at railway crossings, it is crucial that Canada maintains an exemplary record in regards to safety. Although the numbers of pedestrians and motorists at collisions at railway crossings have marginally declined since the early 1990s, general incidents have actually increased during this period. This does not mean that in implementing more stringent safety practices, we should be ignoring crossing accidents, as in 2006, crossing accidents accounted for approximately 23% of all railway accidents in Canada. Instead, Mr. Speaker, we need to provide adequate provisions which ensure improved safety for motorists and pedestrians at crossings, while continuing to implement processes which will simultaneously reduce the more general forms of railway accidents, which include both collisions and derailments. In spite of the marginally decreasing rates of crossing incidents, in 2003, 247 collisions were reported, resulting in deaths of 27 people and more than 50 serious injuries across the country. This rate has remained roughly stagnant over the past 7 years, as from January to September 2010, there were 128 officially reported incidents, resulting in unfortunately 16 fatalities and 15 serious injuries across Canada. Mr. Speaker, let me recall a story from my riding of Sudbury as a demonstration of how the issue of rail safety can affect ordinary Canadians and their children. Just last year, a newborn baby was miraculously unharmed following a two-vehicle collision at the CN Railway crossing on Maley Drive in Sudbury. The vehicle carrying the child was slowing to a stop for the flashing lights and control arm as the train was approaching the crossing. The vehicle was struck from behind and pushed across the tracks as the train approached. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, the vehicle cleared the crossing and was not struck by the train, or the resulting collision would have caused significant injury, damage, and possibly death. This story demonstrates the necessity of implementing enhanced public awareness campaigns designed to ensure that Canadians are aware of the potential dangers which meet them at railway crossings. Moreover, it demonstrates the overarching need for heightened safety standards, which will provide protection to passengers, pedestrians, motorists, and railway service staff, all of whom deserve to be protected from dangerous incidents such as crossing accidents, collisions, and derailments. As of 2001, there were approximately 22,500 public railway crossings across Canada, with an equal number of private crossings falling under the jurisdiction of 2,500 different road authorities. In addition, 2001 statistics reveal that 145 of the 278 crossing collisions occurred at public crossings when there were automated flashing lights and warning bells. Mr. Speaker, this speaks to the fact that many Canadians are not taking the necessary precautions when approaching these crossings. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the incident rate at these types of crossings also point to a deficiency in the way public railway crossings are managed. Clearly, the government needs to address the danger which these types of crossings can present by taking a dual approach encompassing more stringent regulations and an enhanced public awareness campaign. Can I ask my time, Mr. Speaker? Perfect, thank you. Mr. Speaker, improving rail safety across Canada is integral for protecting passengers, pedestrians, motorists, and railway staff, respectively. Therefore, the New Democratic Party will be supporting Bill C-33 at second reading in order to send it to committee for further debate and discussion. Although the proposed amendment to the Railway Act is not perfect, the broad goal of improving railway safety is laudable. Thus, Mr. Speaker, our party welcomes the opportunity to discuss this bill at committee in order to improve specific aspects of the legislation which are currently lacking in its current incarnation. The New Democratic Party is therefore committed to the goal of improving railway safety in Canada and looks forward to working with all parties to ensure that this bill provides the necessary safety protocols which are needed to protect Canadians across the country. Mr. Speaker, we also hope that this bill will continue to protect people like those unfortunate two that were involved in the accident in Sudbury and all people that have been involved in accidents in the past. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank you for the time, and I'll answer some questions.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Thibeault.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate my colleague for Sudbury on his wonderful speech here in the House today. And I'd like to ask my colleague from Sudbury, I know that there's been a lot of talk in your riding of Sudbury and my riding of Thibeault about the railway going right through downtown Sudbury. And I'd like the Honourable Member to tell me if he thinks that the federal government should get back into assisting municipalities who request to have their railroads removed from downtown where they're causing traffic congestions. Can the Honourable Member from Sudbury please give me his opinion on that?
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to thank my honourable colleague from Thibeault for the question and for his great work on all issues for our ridings that were neighbours, especially on the one with Huron Central Railway. When it leads specifically to the railway crossing in downtown Sudbury, there is a line that goes right through Elm Street, which is right our downtown core. And this line not only causes major traffic backups, which have caused accidents, but many times, Mr. Speaker, I have seen individuals who try to run across the tracks. And what they don't see is they don't recognize that there's one track in front and then another track in between and then a line behind. And there's been so many instances of someone thinking they can beat the first train, but they don't realize that the arms coming down and the lights that are flashing is actually for the third train coming on the far line. We've had way too many close calls in Sudbury. So it would be great, and I agree with my honourable colleague, that it'd be fantastic if we could get the federal government involved again in supporting federal initiatives with the municipalities when we're looking at removing train lines and removing track and moving them to other locations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.